Hey, yeah, yes, you can hear me? Yes. I don't have, all right, so I'm just gonna preface everything by, we had, a few messages and questions about how we would address, if and how we would address, any, thing around the presidential election that took place last week. And after we really looked into it, listened to something from Venerable Rabina, thought about it, we felt like the best we could do as the facilitators of this ongoing study is to bring everything into the Dharma, which is what we are advised to do from day one. So that's what that's what we do. That's what we're doing. We bring everything into the Dharma. That is, as our experience as sentient beings, there is nothing else but our arising appearance of events. And that's what we're all working with all the time. Due to the strong emotional reactions, it does seem fitting to maybe tweak the introduction to our opening prayers. And I assure you, Chris and I we've really been focusing on this because for obvious reasons. So I'll just share that we both were thinking deeply about, should we do a guided meditation? Should we do this? Should we do that? And we kept going, both of us kept being driven back to the Four Noble Truths and reminding ourselves that, the whole point of Buddhist path is to liberate sentient beings from the disturbing mental states that characterize the realm of existence that we all collectively have currently found ourselves in. We call this realm, if we are practicing this lineage and we are studying and trying to understand the nature of our experience, the nature of our existence, then we have taken on board Buddhist explanation. At least we're provisionally penetrating it, practicing it, examining it, and studying it. And he has indicated, and our practice is formed around this concept that we are incarnated beings in a realm that is not a pure land, but is in fact a shared realm where term the desire realm, which the characteristic that it is the most top of the realm as a desire realm, what does that translate to? Is the desire realm, it's the dissatisfaction realm, and it's characterized. And this is straight out of the Dharma books that we don't get what we do want, and we do get what we don't want. So we're constantly in this current afflicted state due to our own karma. No one put us here. So we have to, first of all, own that we're here due to our karma in this type of existence. And so we turn to the Buddhist teachings, and the fundamental Buddhist teaching, we just found this so helpful in light of current events to look at the Four Noble Truths. This is Buddha's first teaching, and this is the template that we follow to try to understand the nature of our experience, of our existing experience as consciousnesses. The Four Noble Truths. There is suffering. Suffering has identifiable causes. Thirdly, the cessation of that suffering is possible. And the fourth noble truth is that suffering will end through the application of methods that Buddha laid out. Sometimes you see the Eightfold Noble Path. So those Four Noble Truths can be further distilled down to what we have talked about a lot, and I'm sure this is familiar to any of you who've been coming to class for more than a year, which is the concept of the two wings of the bird. In the Eightfold Noble Path, it all distills down to there's the view of how things exist and our action or our conduct of body, speech, and mind. And these are both all subsumed in, of course, mind training, because everything is happening at the level of the mind or at the level of consciousness. So again, the two wings of the bird, as they call it, Venerable Robina, when she's been here now 7 times, and she's talked about this every time, the two wings of the bird, the view, rather, or understanding the nature of reality, and how do we put that, how do we practice in light of, how do we bring ourselves into alignment with the actual nature of reality? So this is the path. So, and also sometimes called the wisdom wing and the compassion wing, because you're trying to insightfully understand the nature of reality and engaging then reliably in non-harming conduct. So the first step of practice is to open, now we're going to get into our prayers, is to always adopt what they call a beginner's mind. Many of us have heard the teaching, but you want to be an uncontaminated vessel turned right side up. You don't want to previously fill it with your biases or your opinions or about your Buddhist practice. We always are meant to start with a clean, clear, open mind so that we can look, if we knew what was correct and right and accurate and true in the first place, we wouldn't be suffering. So we need to accept that our bowl has a tendency to be contaminated with misunderstandings. So we try to abandon all of our biases, recognizing that as samsara beings, we are by definition mistaken about what we think we know. So in a sense, this is a cultivation of equanimity with ourselves, with our understanding of reality, and to appreciate really deeply in our heart of hearts that all sentient beings found in this realm are afflicted by the same set of problems in terms of the fundamental misunderstanding of how we exist in the cosmos. It's a lot but that is the Buddhist template. So we're here. You can see that if you practice day in and day out, if you keep these ideas active in your mind, then when things don't go the way you want or the way you believe they should, then you have this Buddhist practice to go, oh yeah, I'm an afflicted being in samsara. I am bound to experience the karmic effects of my previous actions of speech, body, and mind. Oh, okay, I'm getting the universe that I have created, or the experience that I have created through my karma and through the collective karma that I'm participating in. So thinking about all that. I'll say one last thing because it struck me so many, many, many years ago. Lama Pasang would say, when the teachers, we have a tendency, and I found this to be so humorous because it's sort of like a visual thing to put in your back pocket. The teachers would always say, instead of going like this, you bad person, you did this, you did this. As a Dharma practitioner, it should always be, you afflicted being, you ignorant being. This is where the blame goes. Drive all blames into one is the mind training line, which is meant, if you've studied the 8 verses of mind training, we have as a group in the past, not recently. So anyway, that in mind, with the sincere wish to understand reality as we live in ourselves and cultivate our deep wish for enlightenment and to bring all of samsara into the light of enlightened activity, we start our prayers. We'll say them in English. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. through the positive potential I create by listening to teachings and the other paramitas, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the positive potential I create by listening to teachings and the other paramitas. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the positive potential I create by listening to teachings and the other paramitas. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Now, thinking about all sentient beings surrounding us in this realm and all realms, our friends, all the strangers that we don't even know who they are, all the enemies that we think are our enemies, we all share the same hopes and wishes for happiness. We all share the same hopes and wishes to avoid suffering. We all hope and wish for nothing but pleasant experiences. Whatever our differences may be, we share the same hope for happiness for ourselves and our loved ones. So we say the four immeasurables. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And picturing yourself as like the shining sun, shining your love and compassion like the sun does in an unbiased way upon all sentient beings. This is how you want to abide. These are sometimes called the four abodes. Okay, we won't say the invocation, but I like to always remember that just as we are literally completely surrounded by sentient beings of every species and level of consciousness, in this very moment we are surrounded. We are also surrounded by the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas who are at the ready to support our sincere efforts. And so we recall them to mind. Anyone that has pointed the way to truth and beauty and goodness and love and compassion in your experience and in your life, as well as our Dharma teachers and the spiritual teachers who are pointing the way towards reality. Bringing them to mind, we say the 7-limb prayer out of appreciation and gratitude for the lineage and the sincerity of these efforts on behalf of human beings, of sentient beings. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merits of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until samsara ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. I dedicate the merit created by myself and all others to the great enlightenment of all sentient beings in every realm. And then the last of the preliminaries that we're advised to do by our teachers is the mandala offering. Again, still with the recollection that surrounding us and in our lives and active in our lives in various ways are the teachers in the lineage, the truth bearers who encourage us to keep going, keep going, keep going. And without these little beacons of light and truth, where would we be? Holy moly. So we do a mandala offering. We are essentially, this is an exercise, a visualization exercise to return the favor of the teaching by saying, I am willing to envision a pure universe with an unbiased love and compassion and care for all the sentient beings who are in their purified form inhabiting this universe. And I'm going to ask Christopher to sing the melody that he's been singing for the mandala offering, but please visualize this as your offering. This is your offering, your sincere visualization of this kind of purified realm.
사지프기 죽신매독 트람리라블링시 니데겐 파디 상계징두 미데우와기 드로군함 닥싱라 처바쇼 Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Okay, so obviously both Kavita and I have talked about how to address the results of the presidential election. And initially, I was thinking we would not take too much time on it, but when I got into it, it actually turned into it is a guided meditation which uses both shamatha and vipassana as the basis for this guided meditation. And just to go over this again, the purpose of shamatha meditation, or placement meditation, as they call it, is to develop a focused and flexible mind known as single-pointed concentration. This is a calm and continuous state of consciousness that is characterized as being blissful, still, and extremely vivid. That is shamatha, single-pointed concentration. Shamatha is a powerful tool of the mind that is developed for the purpose of maintaining and holding in place a very clear, alert, and stable awareness that is free of distraction. This clear and alert awareness allows for vipassana meditation, or analytical meditation is another way of putting it, which is the active development of analysis and insight into the nature of any given phenomenon. So what we're going to attempt here is to through the Buddhist teachings and a Buddhist perspective, try to gain an insight into the nature of the 2024 election results. So this is what the meditation is. And I've spent quite a bit of time on it. And I really, when we're through with that meditation, I actually would encourage and hope that there may be some discussion if there is any confusion or any confusion. So the first thing we do in a meditation is we adopt a comfortable meditation posture with your spine straight. I mean, you can. That's the most important thing, is that you're comfortable and that your spine is straight. Otherwise, you can do other things, but you want to keep those two things in place. So you want to be comfortable and alert, really. So that matters. They say you could actually do this lying down, but in most of our cases, we will fall asleep. But it can be done. It's not that you have to be sitting up. You just have to have your spine straight and be comfortable. So as we go on, if you get tight in certain areas, You can take a deep breath and then exhale the tension with the next out breath. The next thing we do is we set the motivation for the meditation. Cultivate an altruistic intention and motivation for the meditation as you think, with this shamatha meditation practice, I'm developing the conscious capacity of my mind to maintain stable clarity and focus, enabling me to develop the technique of vipassana, so I may gain insight into the nature of compassion and wisdom for the benefit of all beings. So there are a few preliminary practices we do before we get into the actual meditation. And that is, you take a moment just to review your posture, making sure that you are sitting in a relaxed way, but very alert. Take 3 deep, long breaths, and with each exhalation, imagine releasing all of your worries and concerns. Now, consciously release all thoughts of the past and all thoughts of the future, and bring your awareness directly into this present moment. Allow your awareness to completely fill your body, like an undefined cloud that spans from the top of your head to the point where your body meets with the ground. At this stage, simply become aware of the various tactile sensations within your body. Identify those sensations that you relate to the steady rhythm of your in and out breath. You don't need to do anything to create the sensations, simply observe them naturally arising. See if you can maintain your awareness of one full cycle of breath. Observe how it feels when the air flows in. Observe how it feels when the inhalation stops and the air begins to flow out. Observe how it feels when all of the air is released. And observe how it feels as you wait for the next breath to arise. Spend just a little bit of time becoming familiar with this process. Now, use each out breath as an opportunity to further release all tensions in your body and your mind. As you breathe out, allow yourself to become more and more relaxed, while at the same time remaining very clear and present. The more relaxed you become with the out breath, the more clear, alert, and present you become. Using your faculty of introspection, check up every now and then to ensure that you are not drifting off into a stream of thoughts that pull you away from your clear, alert focus. If you find that you're getting dull, then brighten your mind by paying greater attention to the in-breath. When you are once again present and engaged, return to focusing on the out-breath. And the clarity and awareness of your mind. Now we're going to get into the analysis part, the vipassana part of the meditation, and maintain that clear, aware focus as we do so. Bring your thoughts now to the 2024 American presidential election on the 5th of November. Notice your current feelings about it. From a Buddhist perspective, the intention behind any action is what determines its karmic potency and effect. The intention behind any action is what determines its karmic potency and effect. So, no matter which candidate you voted for, or which candidate won or lost the election, from a Buddhist perspective, the intention behind your vote is what determines the karmic potency and effect of your vote. Again, I'll repeat that. No matter which candidate you voted for, or which candidate won or lost the election, from a Buddhist perspective, the intention behind your vote is what determines the karmic potency and effect of your vote. If one voted for their candidate from a position of altruism, with the wish that all beings may derive benefit from that vote, regardless of their political affiliations, then the action or karma of that vote has an overall positive and beneficial effect going forward. From a Buddhist perspective, an altruistically motivated action is virtuous because it is devoted to the interest of others. That kind of motivation functions within the interdependently arising nature of reality in a way that is congruent with interdependence. Altruistic energy is powerful and beneficial. The motivation of altruism makes one's vote positive in an energetic way. Whether the candidate won or lost the election. So this is not about who wins, who loses an election. It is about the motivation behind one's vote. This is what matters from the Buddhist perspective. If one voted for their candidate from a position of anger and fear, with the intention that the opposing candidate and their party should suffer a crushing defeat and harsh retribution, then the action or karma of that vote has an overall negative and unfavorable effect going forward.
On the voter? On the person themselves?
It is the person's karma. It is the voter's karma. Yes. Remember, this is about your intention.
And your karma.
And your karma. This is the Buddhist perspective. From a Buddhist perspective, an intention based in anger and fear is motivated by afflictive emotions and arises out of ego self-grasping ignorance and is delusional. I'll say that again. From a Buddhist perspective, an action or karma motivated by afflictive emotions such as hatred and fear arises out of ego self-grasping ignorance and is delusional. Therefore, such an action functions within the interdependently arising nature of reality in a way that is incongruent with interdependence. Self-centered energy focuses on me and mine. That kind of energy tends to create division and separation. The motivation of anger and fear makes one's vote negative in an energetic way, whether the candidate won or lost the election. Think about the logical implications of this from a Buddhist perspective. Think about the logical implications of this for you from a Buddhist perspective. Now bring your awareness back to your breath. As long as the breath remains uninterrupted, it continually functions, whether we are aware of it or not. Recognize that the process of breathing itself is a manifestation of the interdependently arising nature of reality. At a gross physical level, the breath is actually part of a cyclic biogeochemical process of receiving and giving, that ultimately connects each one of us in a physical way to the entire universe and everything that inhabits it. At subtle and very subtle physical levels, we are connected to everything and everyone around us through subatomic particles and quantum particles. At the non-physical level of consciousness, our gross conscious awareness of sights, sounds, tastes, tactile sensations, thoughts, memories, and emotions connects us to the world of consciousness and form that is all around us. At a subtle and very subtle level of consciousness, we are connected to the mental continuum of all sentient beings everywhere. Beings with whom we share an innate potential for enlightenment. At subtle and very subtle levels of consciousness, we are connected to the mental continuum of all sentient beings everywhere. Beings with whom we share an innate potential for enlightenment. As we gain more and more wisdom and insight into the truth that no one and no thing has an independent, self-existent nature, that everything and everyone exists in a continual state of dependent arising, constantly transforming due to causes and conditions, we will develop an unshakable motivation to generate the causes and conditions of immeasurable, unlimited love, compassion, joy, and equanimity for the benefit of all beings, no matter who or what they appear to be. Once again, become aware of the various tactile sensations that correspond to your in and out breath. Observe the rise and fall of the chest or abdomen and the feeling of air moving through the nostrils. Simply identify the sensations which indicate that you are breathing, and adopt the mental posture of an impartial observer. Particularly, pay attention to the relative duration of each phase of the in and out breath. If you find that your mind is filled with many thoughts, then you can generate a very specific thought by counting the breaths. At the very end of the in-breath, mentally count 1. Then release all effort on the out breath. Again, watch the breath flow in, count 2, and again release on the out breath. Watch the breath flow in, count 3, and release on the out breath. Just repeat this process a couple more times. When the mind is calm, stop counting and simply return to observing the relative duration of each breath. Finally, release all efforts and rest in the present moment. And this concludes the meditation session. What I would say is that from a Buddhist perspective, there are some very interesting observations that we just went through. And I encourage any questions or discussion about that if there's a need for some clarification or any confusion. This also is part of understanding how the mind works. To be engaging in this kind of meditation is all part of the process of understanding the model of the mind as Buddhism sets it forth. Were you able at all to get any sense of having a very clear and alert kind of mental space in which to then focus on a particular analysis? Did that occur for anyone, or was it just all just listening to what I was saying?
Will say, Christopher, that, for me, I mean, the message I heard from the Buddhist perspective is that intention is what's important. And that if you did the act you undertake with a positive, good intention, that's the most important aspect, irrespective of the outcome of the act.
Right.
And so, from a Buddhist perspective, I guess that's true. Intention has a lot to do with karma and karmic actions. So to me, that was one of the central points of your meditation. I'm not sure that makes anybody feel, or I shouldn't say anybody, I'm not sure that makes me personally feel any different about the outcome of the election, but
Yeah, another aspect of this analysis is the sense of interconnectedness that actually is quite real, that all of us have, not only with one another, but with the universe at large. And so the idea, and this goes back to the whole issue or the whole, what you might say, problem with samsaric existence is that it actually arises out of a mistaken view. This is a view that things exist inherently. It arises from the ego self-grasping view. And that ego self-grasping view, of course, as we've been studying, is really mistaken. And so anytime we get into a situation where we are grasping on to me and mine and becoming divisive in the way we relate not only to those who we have close relationships with, but whole swaths of groups of types of people, whether it's a race, religion, or political outlook. When we do that, we are actually engaging in an afflictive kind of emotion, which is mistaken and, according to Buddhism, is delusional. It's not actually seeing things the way they truly exist. And so if we can have a much bigger view and a much bigger heart, then we are able to take in all the views and all of the types of beings that exist, from the most terrifying, horrible hell type being to, the ones that we think of as totally wonderful and enlightened, such as a Buddha. From a Buddhist perspective, they're all the same in that they want to be happy. They don't want to suffer. And it goes back to what Kavita was talking about, that we have teachings that the Buddhists gave us to understand exactly why we're not happy, exactly why we suffer, what causes that. That is the grasping at a self, the delusional grasping at inherent existence, and thinking that things need to be a certain way out there in order for me to be happy. And the Buddha is saying that's not the case. The actual answer is lying within the mind itself, within the broad view that one can develop, and with that, the broad compassion that one can develop.
Something that is on my mind about this, there's sort of two related things. First is that I can feel my resistance and the resistance of most everybody I know to the actual factual, according to Buddhism, situation we're in, that by definition, this is samsara. I, being unenlightened, by definition, I am experiencing a contaminated experience. And within that mess, because of, since beginningless time, that habituated grasping and craving towards, I, me, and mine, that not only I, but every single being that is existing in samsara with me at this time is engaged in the same problem. And so I think it's really hard for me to take on board that in essence, I shouldn't be surprised at a conflicted world, a jumbled up, contentious world, and a world where there's suffering, consternation, disagreement, war, starvation, blah, go on, name your problem. Because, as Geshe Draku used to always say when we would discuss these things, like, he would look at us like, don't you get it? This is samsara. So bringing that then to the immediate scenario of, say a political discourse and a political movement and political movements and outcomes and elections and all the things that go with that. To think that it is somehow shocking that some people think one way and some people think another way, and there seems to be this giant clash, that should be no surprise. As a Buddhist practitioner, it's weird that we would be surprised, or in a way, it's weird that we should be affected or disturbed, because it's fucking samsara. What do we think? And so it's, they have this saying, it's like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. No political outcome is going to solve samsara.
Oh, no.
Samsara is, and when you hear His Holiness talk about, say, the Chinese invasion of Tibet, he says, I don't know, the nonviolent approach is the only approach that works. It takes a long time. How many lifetimes will it take for the karma of Tibet to resolve itself to where it, this is just, we have to take, if we're going to practice Buddhism, these kinds of analysis are not fun and easy, and they go against everything that was piled upon us with the external information we digest, or at least that we consume.
One of the
So
teachings,
it's kind of a weird thing.
one of the teachings in Buddhism is that everything that we experience is a karmic appearance. It's not only a personal, individual karmic appearance, but there is also a group karmic appearance, and that is how Buddhism puts it. So that is what we are experiencing. Not only are we experiencing the effects of our individual karma, and it's coming to us as a karmic appearance of what's going on. And as you can see, different people are reacting in different ways to the same event, which shows you that this event does not exist inherently from its own side. That's something to take in. One of the things that I always try to do, and I'm doing more and more as I understand more deeply what the Buddhist teachings are talking about, is I try to see both sides of a situation, to actually like almost put myself in the place of someone, to get a sense of what is it that they are feeling and experiencing, so I can at least understand in whatever small way I can, what's going on. And one of the things that Kavita and I both have started to do, and we've been doing this for a while, is we are looking at both versions of the information that's being presented to, well, actually multiple versions, but in terms of when you talk about what I would say is the mainstream corporate-owned media, that tells you a lot, that all of these mainstream media companies, including the what would you consider to be on the left and the right, they are owned by a small group of corporate interests. So that right there tells you, oh, well, what is behind this? What's behind a corporate interest?
Personally, I think
So I need to finish.
Oh, sorry.
So what we have done is we have looked at both what we would consider to be the liberal expression coming out of these, what you would say, mainstream media, corporately owned media, as well as the conservative view coming out of the mainstream conservative corporately owned media. And what we are finding is that there is an unbelievable disconnect between the two. And in some cases, there's just downright lying going on both sides. So if and the problem is if we're afraid, we have family members who are so poisoned to Donald Trump that they can't even look at him. They think they will throw up. So there's no way that you could actually look at the source material of Donald Trump, the expression from the source of Donald Trump, and not be sick to your stomach. So what we do is we just go turn to the source that we trust to tell us. And what's happening, what Kavita and I have discovered,
What people in general do.
what people in general do. And what Kavita and I have discovered, what is happening from these sources that we go to trust, they are actually downright lying. They are lying. And it's shocking. It's shocking to see it. And I'm saying both. So I mean, I take on this information and go, holy cow, I need to go back to the Dharma here.
It's gotta be space aliens. There's no other
I need to, you know, the
Christopher,
yes,
you know, I don't, do you hear me okay?
yes, I do.
Okay, my way of handling this was to vote and then not look at any news or any polls or any stories or anything else. I didn't watch the election results. And I woke up the next morning and found out what they were. And I just remembered this Shanti Deva line, which I've just looked up. If there's a remedy when trouble strikes, what reason is there for dejection? And if there is no help for it, what use is there in being glum? And that comes back to me so often when what I want, I don't get. And then I thought, well, if it had been the other way, you know, I think we could be in a civil war today. And just looking at the transition at the inauguration or, you know, last time, I think I'm not in a position to judge if this was a good outcome or a bad outcome.
Right.
And then I just kind of quit thinking about it and move on to something I enjoy more.
Right.
So I don't know if that's Buddhist or not Buddhist, but it works for me.
It's actually very Buddhist. I think it's very Buddhist because if
Thanks for a reminder about that great Shanti Deva.
yeah,
That's the whole point.
the only thing we can do about it is within our own mind and how we view it and how we view others, which is why no matter what one's vote was, like I said, if that vote was altruistically motivated, then that is good energy. And that good energy is going to have some effect. Who knows?
That's a good effect.
It's going to have a good effect. And that to me should make anyone who voted with that kind of energy feel good about their vote because they were voting in line with the nature of reality.
With the understanding that we're all
Yeah.
doing our best. Yeah.
Right, and we're all doing our best. So
Anyway, I don't know. That's really great, and I'm really glad to hear, you know, and you know, some of this comes maybe with, I hate to say it, but some of this comes with, you know, after we've had our careers and we've aged somewhat, we can see a little bit at a distance, you know, the turmoil of the planet is not going to end with our generation.
Well,
No.
you know, I thought that in the 60s.
right.
So, you know, I mean, I think the bigger thing is whether the planet will survive humans. And if it doesn't, there's a cartoon in the New Yorker last week that showed the planet Earth. And then somewhere was God talking to an angel and a meteor hitting the Earth. And God said, I feel like getting rid of some dinosaurs.
Well,
So anyway,
our teachers always have said, as
so God had thrown a meteor towards the earth and said to his angels, I felt like getting rid of some dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Which, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I won't say any more. But, you know, I just try to find a humorous way to deal with the state of the world because otherwise it's hopelessness.
Yeah.
So, I mean, our teachers directly said to us, and we've said this many times, if the meteor hit or whatever calamity, and look, the planet, like everything in the cosmos, is impermanent. So this planet definitely will come to a cessation, definitely. We don't know
And
when.
my only regret is not seeing what's going to come after humans. And we went from dinosaurs to humans, and what's going to be next?
Well, in the event that it is a meteor strike and the planet disintegrates, we'll all have
Right.
reincarnated onto other planets. And so we'll be carrying on with our same
Uh,
set of afflictive or purified
well, that's the most depressing thing I've heard yet.
sorry.
Well, no,
It's meant to motivate us, but
We're
yeah,
going to do this around the whole universe.
that's it. Sorry, but that is now, I mean, I agree, I have already gone to the depression route. I've been thinking about this concept for,
Yeah.
15 years or so. And I finally conclude, well, that's the good news, because it also means as I clean up my act, I'm gonna start reincarnating on more harmonious, in more harmonious realms. So it's incremental, and my job is to bring as many people into alignment with reality as I have the ability to do, is with with the almost non-existent influence I have. In other words, share what you know and keep going. Share what you know and keep going.
Otherwise, you'll be all alone on some godforsaken planet
Well,
somewhere.
I mean, Christopher says, for all we know, there are more enlightened consciousnesses in the universe than
Yeah.
ones like us. So we may walk into like, oh shit, sorry it took me so long to get here.
Well, I mean, that's true. I mean,
Anyway,
you have to posit that as a possibility, that our particular view is extremely limited. It's like we have blinders on, and there's a whole other way of existing that's already happening out there that is not going through this turmoil that this ego grasping that we've got going on.
Yeah.
But it is what the Buddha said the problem is. And obviously, the Buddhist teaching is that there are things you can do. There are steps you can take, not only for yourself, but then to help others to do the same thing. To sort of generate the causes and conditions that are going to work with this transformational power and nature of existence itself. Existence is constantly in motion and is constantly coming in and out of the various types of existence due to causes and conditions. That is obvious when we look at it, when we analyze it, when we observe it. That is what's going on. Even though things may appear to be permanent, we know that they're not actually. We know that they're in a continual process of transformation, coming into being, going out of being, recycling, coming back into some other kind of being, going out of that kind of being. So this is what we need to learn are what are the kinds of causes and conditions that we can generate that are going to produce results that bring us happiness. That's the Buddha's point. That's the whole reason for his teaching. And what he has done is he's come into he has addressed a group of beings that are basically lost in the dark, lost in the darkness of ignorance, and trying to present a step-by-step way to sort of pull yourself out of that and begin to realize what's going on and how the moves you can take to change it first for yourself in a way that is a better direction, a way that is going to make things more happy, less suffering. And this goes back to his to the Four Noble Truths, the very first teaching, and and the only way to do this, the only way to do it is to first hear it, then try to understand what it is we're hearing, try to understand what it is the Buddha was saying. And then based on what the Buddha advised, as just starting with the most basic initial practices, practice that. Because if we don't do it, if we just hear it, if we just take it on board and go, oh, well, that makes sense, but we don't actually bring it into, we don't embody it through practicing it, nothing really is going to change. because the only way we learn anything, the only way we accomplish anything is by practicing it, repeating it, going over and over. That's when it begins to really take hold and we begin to transform. That's when we become a great athlete. We become a great musician. We become a great educator. We're not born that way. It doesn't happen on its own. We have to put in the time. We have to put in the practice. So if we want to become a great person, a great happy being, then it only makes sense that we look at the Buddha's teachings, make a decision for ourselves if there is some sense in those, and then rather than just sit there and go, yeah, that's interesting and that makes sense, actually begin to put them into practice on a regular basis. And that's where the work is, because that's where we're actually pushing against our habitual propensity to not do that. To just go with the way we always have gone, go with the way we always behave, go with the way we always think. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of effort. So we have to decide if it's worth it.
So Christopher, I have two questions. Going back to this idea of, individual versus group karma. So the two questions I have is that while you can do things to, change your individual karma, it is much harder and maybe not possible to really change group karma. That is karma that is not yours specifically, but those of the rest of the sentient beings.
Mhm.
And then if you assume, so I guess the question there is, okay, so let's say that your individual karma and the group karma are kind of at odds with one another. So on the one hand, your karma, let's say, is good and you're doing all the right things, but the group karma is collectively not doing what we consider, quote, good. So then eventually it seems that group collective karma may still outweigh the individual karma. That's one question. But then the second question is, well, let's assume, as you posited in your discussion, that the intent of the individual in terms of how they cast their vote in this election is what's important. And let's say that the group karma's intent was positive and was the right intent, and ended up voting for one party, but then your individual karma was also positive in the right intent, but ended up voting for a different party. And the outcomes of those two things could be, the outcomes of those two different karmas could be very different. Does that make sense to you?
The outcome, if the karma, either for the individual or the group, if that karma is in alignment with the nature of reality, in other words, if it's altruistic, if it's in alignment with an interdependent way of being, rather than a separate, divisive way of being, if the individual and the group are that karma is there, then that will have a beneficial effect, no matter what. It's not like it's not as simple as just saying so and so got so many votes and so got so many votes and they win and they lose. It's what were those, if those votes were actually the majority of those votes on both sides were altruistically based, that they wanted everyone to have sort of have an equanimity. If that was the case, then that is going to affect the outcome, whatever it is. It will affect, because that is what the energy is demanding. That is what the energy is asking for. That is what the energy being put out there is about.
Well,
And
I guess that was my second construct, that basically each side or each vote for different individual was still altruistic in nature.
Right,
It was
right.
done with the right motivation. And so in that
It's all
sense,
for good.
then no matter what the outcome was, there will be benefit. That's what you just said.
That is what I just said, yes, and that is the Buddhist viewpoint, because it's the intention that actually shapes the karma, shapes the result, shapes the
So
action.
in that sense, we shouldn't, and I believe, maybe this is my personal, I believe a lot of people who voted for each side had the right intention. I mean, they believed strongly they were doing the right thing in however they
For the right
cast their
reason.
vote for the right reason.
I also, I agree with you, Brian. I think the same. After looking at, like we said, we've looked at both the mainstream views, but I don't think that necessarily is in alignment with actually the views of the people. No, completely. I think what everybody really wants is what's going to work and what's going to work for everybody. Now, there may be cases where our intention becomes conflicted. Yes, we want the best for everybody, but we really can't, we really think that something is very, very wrong with a particular candidate or view.
Well, that's then contaminating your
That,
altruistic.
right, and
I-
that gets sort of mixed up a little bit.
I think, Brian, the part of your question, I don't know if this was the intention of your question, the question about personal karma versus group karma, but I don't know, my understanding, and this is strictly my understanding, karma ripens in various ways, and one of the ways that our own individual behavior ripens is what they call environmental karma. And my understanding is, and I think I'm correct in this, that as simplistically put, as we clean up our act, well, the group that we're a part of, so the group karma itself, it itself shifts. It's
Yeah.
a little bit like, very simplistically, my understanding is it would be like as if, let's say when I was a kid, I grew up in a beach town, and I would have been living in a beach town, surfing every day and hanging out and smoking dope on the beach, and that would be my life probably today. But because I took in new information and decided and ended up developing certain other strengths or interests, I found myself not a beach bum anymore. I found myself with a different set of beings who I am now sharing a different set of group karma. So anyway, I mean, I think it's a little bit like that. One of the things, this is something to look forward to, and I think all of us should be heartened by this idea. At the end of this lifetime, Venerable Robina's been talking about this a lot, that after this current present lifetime, there is a thing called a Pure Land, a realm within which you can take your next life that is dominated by the Dharma. In other words, you have become so convinced of the importance of Dharma practice and the effectiveness for sentient beings of Dharma, and your work and your pure intention is such that you can strive and accomplish being reborn. Your very next incarnation may not be in the same kind of physical body here, but your next life can be in a place where everybody is working on the Dharma. And that's something that I haven't looked into that much, but she's written about it, and we have books that talk about this. But I mean, if you're looking for, some optimism, even Geshe Nima wrote about it in a text message. I don't know, some months ago, he was talking about our practice and, to pray that we be reborn in a Pure Land. Why? So that we can, in a less distracted way, practice these ideas so that we more quickly become living examples to take rebirths in whatever realm, to be examples and assistants to beings who are similarly trying to remove the contaminated stuff in their consciousness and so forth.
Yeah.
Something to think
And
about.
I would say, depending on our, our intention, our motivation, our level of practice, and as we ourselves are transforming, at the time of our death, we are going to naturally be drawn to something like what we are. So you could even, I mean, I'm sure there are even places, pockets on this planet itself, where it is conditions are far more conducive to practicing the Dharma and continuing with this process. I mean, not everything on the planet is as it appears to us through the media, because it's being filtered to us through the media and who owns and controls the media and who makes those decisions. So there are pockets, I'm sure, where you could still be born and still continue to have the kind of life where you could continue practicing the Dharma. And I have no reason to think that something like a Pure Land isn't possible. Why would it be impossible? We limit our own thinking based on our grasping at this as being the only reality.
Convinced of material.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to tell a story. Because this is kind of a fun story about how karma works and intention and karma work, and things aren't always as they seem to be. And this is a very personal story, and so you'll have to bear with me a little bit, but I was in a job that I was feeling dissatisfied, and I felt that because I felt that my capacities were not being fully utilized. And I started praying, this is about 10 years ago, I started praying on a regular basis. All the time, I was wishing fervently, may I find employment that is more suitable to my skill set and that I can be utilized more fully, kind of like that. And so one day I was on a walk and I was thinking this very fervently, and I got back to my office, and it was a recruiter who wanted me to interview for a particular job. And I thought, of course, oh my gosh, I was just on a walk praying for this amazing opportunity to open up before me so that I could be of more benefit to more people in ways that are more appropriate for my skills. So to make a long story short, I go through the interview process, and sure enough, I get the job. And I'm thinking the whole time, wow, this is so great. I'm going to be able to utilize my skills. This was, quote, meant to be in the way that I thought it was meant to be. So anyway, speeding forward, the next 3 years of that job, it was clear that I had entered into an extreme, dysfunctional, terrible, non-virtuous organization that was involved in hiding its own contaminated practices and stuff. And people who were literally breaking the law and doing blatantly non-virtuous things, harmful things. It was like the most mind-blowing experience. And so, of course, I was like, wow, was I ever wrong? Okay, now here's where this is the interesting twist of fate. I was at the time a Buddhist practitioner. Geshe Drakpa was actually in San Antonio for some of this time. I was getting teachings all the time. So I was constantly in a situation where I was taking the horrific things happening in my work experience. And I can't tell you, it was amazing how afflicted it was. So after that job was over, I had lunch with a colleague, and we sat down, and she starts telling me, that job that you had, I also applied for that job, and I was really disappointed that I didn't get it. And we're having lunch, and she starts to tell me about how her husband had schizophrenia. And then right around the time when I started the job, she would have also have started the job. Her husband killed herself, and she found killed himself. And so in some weird way, my getting the job did fulfill some of the altruism that I had by merely protecting her from this incredibly horrific organization that she would have been so embroiled in the turmoil that I was embroiled in, on top of her husband killing herself, it really would have destroyed her. She's a sweet person. I'd known her since since I was 25. I'd known her many, many years here in San Antonio. So I could see this, like, not only did I have the opportunity to see some levels of afflicted behavior that had heretofore not exposed to, really showed me some more of how awful samsaric motivations and ego-driven motivation is really destructive. But I also got to save this dear person from a set of circumstances that would have, by getting the job, and she not getting the job, she got to stay in a very sweet little organization, whether she wanted to or not. Anyway, you just never know. You just never know what good is coming out of what maybe seems bad. So this whole time, that I saved her from that, put such a different view of the turmoil, that how could this happen to me? It's like, wow, thank God I saved.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point about you never know. I mean, I would say also in relation to, the current situation and the election that's happened, we actually never know. This what may be a good turn of events as opposed to a unfortunate turn of events. And if, as we are suspecting, that the majority of the country, of the population of the country, wants something good that's good for everyone, then this may be an opportunity for that energy to be directed towards the current
Well,
administration,
like it
and
always
see.
is.
And see. I mean, we'll just see. I don't know, but I think we at least need to keep up with our practices and keep up with our understanding, and keep up with an open mind, the way Buddhism would tell us to have an open mind. Not delusional open mind, but an open mind.
Yeah, I could say firsthand it's hard because your biases.
Yeah.
My biases, I'll just admit, during this whole thing, it kept pulling me in a particular direction, but my commitment to equanimity forced me to keep going into an examination of what was going on.
I think that's the same for all of us. And I think, like you say, that commitment to the Buddhist path, commitment to having a view of equanimity, commitment to the four immeasurables, for instance, commitment to that, then I think that will guide us, and it will guide us safely, and it will guide us well. And we won't generate further conflict that doesn't need to be there.
It is such a huge piece. Please, we all have to remember this every single day, that this is not a heaven. This is not a heavenly realm. And so please, let's all not be shocked when negative things happen, because due to our individual and group karma, we are in a tumultuous environment. That is just examine your own emotions about, you didn't get the meal you ordered, you didn't get the job you wanted, you banged your toe on the doorstep. I mean, just look at how your emotions are all over the place every day, and don't be shocked that the world reflects that. That's the realm we all have. So please, let's all keep our heads on us and remember, okay, how do I build a bridge to an enlightened experience?
Yeah, and I would say that we keep studying, we keep practicing.
Yeah, it's enthusiasm. They say it's keep chugging.
And also, I mean, I also take a lot of heart in recognizing that every being I'm aware of, whether they're human or they're an animal or even an insect, it is obvious that every being doesn't want to suffer. It's clear, it's quite clear. And it's obvious that every being responds to those causes and conditions that bring about happiness for them. So it's obvious every being wants to be happy, and every being doesn't want to suffer. And there's something that we should take heart in that. And all that it would require is that each being finds those causes and conditions which will allow that to occur. instead of grabbing onto things that actually aren't going to work, that don't make sense. So I think this is our personal task, and it's also the task as we go forward, is to help others, not be so distraught, and just to realize that everything will change, everything does change, and it could change for the better. That's always a possibility. I mean, maybe not permanently, not in samsara, but maybe in increments, things will get somewhat better. Especially if everybody raises their understanding of how things work, the way reality is. So who knows? I think we'll have to leave it there. Any more comments or discussions on any of this?
This has nothing to do with today's lesson, just a question. Did you guys get the pictures of Geshe Nima's recent visit with His Holiness?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I should send them out. They were neat.
You should. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
He sent them on WeChat, and it's not hooked up to my, I can switch them over so I can put them in the laptop. It was neat. Quite a few photos of him getting blessed by His Holiness.
Yeah. So I mean, we have a direct connection, right? It's kind of
Let me see.
amazing to me.
I don't think I can do this quickly. I'll try real quickly. Usually it takes me more times than I might be able to screen share. Oh wait, I know, I can do a low-tech screen share. Here's a low-tech screen share. There's Geshe Nima getting blessed by His Holiness. Here you can see Geshe Nima's face and His Holiness's face. Well, the side, that's Geshe Nima there on the, obviously a cleanly shaven head. Here's another view of Geshe Nima. So you can see, very nice that it was so nicely photo documented. This was just a few days ago, last Tuesday, I think, Monday or Tuesday. Another one. Anyway, so he'll be here. This is the moment of, precious moment of blessing onto Geshe Nima from a man who is quite an inspiration. Sometimes I actually been brought to tears when I think about the influence His Holiness has had on not only myself, but of every single Dharma teacher in our lineage, and even all the lineages of Buddhism. What an impact!
He's had an impact on the planet. Actually, it's incredible.
Anywho,
There's a really funny.
I'll stick him in an email. I promise. I get
one of those pictures is pretty funny because it's
a low tech.
Can't step close, but Geshe Nima has his head down like this, and he's looking up at His Holiness. And I was looking at that picture, and I'm going, "Wow, Geshe Nima got himself this rad haircut. I can't believe it. It's like all these stripes going this way, And I was like, "Whoa!" And as I'm looking at it, I realized, oh, those are the wrinkles in his skull. And as he's looking up, he's so clean shaven that all of these wrinkles were dark, and they looked like he had this, like, oh man, what a rad haircut for a monk. So that was kind of a funny picture.
Yeah, I think I can log into WeChat on
a little like a Sharpei,
I'll figure it out.
Okay.
Anyway, his arrival, he'll be in the States the end of November. Then he'll be off traveling, and then we won't see him here for his teaching until I believe it's January 2nd. But there may be I don't know the exact timing of things, but I'm sure if there is an opportunity for everybody to have a dinner or something when he's here, that I know we'll do it.
So right now, just to bring it up to date, so he's planning to leave India on the 16th, which means he'd be in San Antonio on the 17th of December. And then I can't remember when he starts to travel around the US. Is it 22nd, 23rd? I can't
No,
remember.
it's the 26th, or no. Yeah, somebody, Dickie is gonna drive him to Houston on whatever that date is. I don't remember now, but it's like the,
Okay, so I think there will be 5 or 6 days between the time he gets here and the time he departs for Houston that, if we wanted to try to do something, we could. And then,
At least at dinner.
yeah, at least a
Yeah.
dinner. And then I can't remember again when he comes back to San Antonio, but he'll be leaving for Minneapolis on January 20th.
yeah, he's back here on January 2nd.
Okay, so there's, basically almost 3 weeks that he'll be back in San Antonio for teachings and other things.
Yeah.
I can't find, there's a way to, how do I do this? I can go to, well.
All right, we should
Okay.
dedicate the merit. Otherwise, we would just keep looking at our phone. All right. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that we may liberate all sentient beings from suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the view of emptiness not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In all my rebirths, may I not be separated from true lamas, and so enjoy the magnificent Dharma, completing all the qualities of the stages and paths. May I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara and enlightened Buddha. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We will get to the understanding the mind and the whole model of the mind next time. It's very interesting, and I think it will be very helpful for all of us.
Thank you, Christopher.
Oh, so welcome. I hope this was helpful in some way, and we will all move forward in happiness and brethrenship.
Exactly. It's all about our intentions every day. So
Yeah.
intentions, everyone.
Yeah, okay. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.